Hi guys, sorry it's been a long time. Now in this video I'd like to take the time to talk about the work of an independent filmmaker that I've been very curious about for a number of years now, and also at a time where I was completely obsessed with Japanese cyberpunk and stumbled upon this young British lad talking about some very rare VHS tapes, which were the tapes of Shozen Fukui. Now Shozen Fukui, if you don't know, is responsible for the works of 964 Pinocchio and Rubber's Lover, which are two really rare cult films. You can probably watch them online for free, but getting a physical copy of these movies is next to nearly impossible, but you can still buy them, it's just really expensive. But this one video led me down a rabbit hole of guys' projects that he'd done, such as the Rope Maiden, which at the time was sadly out of print when I was 16 to 17 years old, which was also the same for his second movie, Difficulty Breathing, a few years later when he released that. With only a few trailers to go by, and obviously reviews giving him some praise, that was all I had, and I thought I would never be able to get my hands on any of his work, until now. During the beginning of the end of the world, i.e. COVID, I managed to get my hands on a few of Guy's films, as he re-released the Rope Maiden, including a bundle with the original DVD-R, Difficulty Breathing, and also two of his 10-minute short films called Uncoffee and Jihanko. Uncoffee was the winner of Shintaro Kago's Shit Film Festival. For those who don't know, Shintaro Kago is very similar to Junji Ito with the whole body horror aspect of his drawings. But before I start, I would like to give a massive thank you to Channel of the Living Dead for sending me over some of his exclusive lovely stickers. You can see those on the webcam. They're very quirky. Oh, no, dropped them. They're very quirky and they're very well made. Got no complaints with that whatsoever. I will leave a link to his channel in my description where you can check him out. Go and DM him on Instagram where you can go and get your hands on a couple of these stickers. I did have 4 of them, but one's on my laptop lid and the other one I gave to my girlfriend. So yeah, thanks mate, and on with the video. The Rope Maiden was Guy's first short film, being a nod to extreme horror films like Guinea Pig, Flowers of Flesh and Blood. The premise is that a psychopath played by Guy kidnaps a young Japanese girl and basically addresses the audience through a camcorder, giving you the various different steps to having safety when creating your own torture dungeon. And judging by the cover of these DVDs, you can kind of imagine what to expect from them. He disembowels her and then proceeds to hang up her intestines like some sort of demented chandelier, and leaves her there, turns off the lights, and some fairy lights start to blink and flash, and that's really the end of the movie. Short, sweet, and doesn't really outstay its welcome. In all honesty though, for his first attempt at making a movie, it's something incredibly simple, but is also something quite special, as it's able to do so much with such a small cast. And I'm gonna be saying that throughout this video, but it's true. It was only a couple of people that he worked with who, I think in the bonus features he says about he used to work with people in a Japanese restaurant who were up for being a part of it, which is awesome. For being made on such a small budget, it does the things that you expect. Just a grotesque homage to extreme horror films, and also the humour is gloriously dark, like very dark. One little detail I loved was, I'm probably going to spoil this now, but just bear with. There's one detail that I love where Guy has a tea break, and as a British person I can kind of relate to this, not for what he used the table as, but he used this girl as a makeshift table to stack his biscuits on. So obviously in the UK it's custom that you dip biscuits in your tea. I just found that very funny. Not that to make someone as a makeshift table, but you understand what I'm saying. The gore is brilliant, even though it looks very fake, but with a small budget you've got to work with what you got, and really it's just over the top bloodshed there. And I love how it was shot on camcorder. I really love that sort of camcorder look. There's something to it that makes it feel a bit more like a private thing rather than something that is going to be shown to a wide audience. A bit like August Underground, that kind of thing where it's made for them, not for the public. Do you know what I'm saying? It works really well, and it gives a really sort of grimy, dirty, amateur look for something that isn't really that amateur. It's actually quite well made. The Rope Maiden is a short, violent, gory, and jet black humour little film, and I really, really liked it. And it really does have an undertone of fun to it, as crazy as that sounds. But I think when you've got that, it can really be seen by anybody, and anyone can really sort of take it as a joke. With Guy's second film, Difficulty Breathing, it takes a far more darker and, how should I put it, sinister undertone. The premise being a young woman who is sexually assaulted resorts to isolation in her small flat and begins to gradually lose her grip on reality and losing her own sanity. The film is really just an onslaught of noise and claustrophobia, and really that it feels as if the walls are closing in. That's kind of the best way I can describe it, to be honest. Guy has a noise soundtrack this time compared to having a script or anything like that. This goes completely for a visual and audio experience rather than any talking. And to be honest with you, I haven't really seen that before, and it was really quite exciting. The beginning scroll, Play Loud, really reminded me somewhat of Tetsuo. That sort of really gritty, static look with that sort of TV font. It's so cool, and it's just got a lot of charm to it. But at first I was nervous of this because I thought, oh no, is this gonna really get tiresome? But no, it doesn't. It really does add to the tone of the film, going from quieter bits where she gradually, spoilers, if you don't want to hear this bit, then I'll leave some timestamps, where she gradually, obviously, is what's happened, and she's distraught and begins to barricade her door, or she's barricaded her door, and then she gradually, as the mundane task of looking after herself, cooking for herself, and then she begins to run out of food. This is where it becomes interesting, because she does not want to leave her house, and this is where the noise slowly begins to build up again, and how he uses that soundtrack is fucking phenomenal, man. It's brilliant. But gradually, as time passes, she begins to see some apparition behind the sliding door of her apartment, or flat if you're in the UK. And it's very, very, how should I put it? It's all very invasive and unsettling, like you have nowhere to go and you're stuck with this thing, which you don't even know if it's real or not. But as time passes, she begins to feel some discomfort and births a non-developed fetus. I told you this film would get dark, where she begins to nurture and attempt to look after it, but all doesn't go too well. In the end, an unknown man begins to strangle her to death, and it's revealed at the end of the movie, on a static shot, that we don't know if she was strangled or she hung herself, because, to be honest with you, it's one of those things where it's incredibly surreal and leaves the audience guessing, which I really, really like. But the ending shot is very, very creepy. Just seeing a poor, dead woman in a place where you should feel safe is no more. And it's quite upsetting. It's really upsetting. It really did make me feel a bit grim afterwards watching that movie, but Christ almighty, Guy did a really good job with this. Difficulty Breathing really is a unforgettable film. It's really unsettling. Like I said before previously, using what you can to make something really effective. I think he's done that really, really well. And this is a film that's really shot well. It looks grimy and dirty and gives you that feeling of just a cold. It's very cold. The way I sound like a fucking posh student, but it does feel very, very cold. It's not very welcoming, the environment here, and it really plays throughout. It moves like a steamroller too. Not to say that it's boring, it's not, but how things go from one bad scenario to another bad scenario, it never stops. until that final climax, which you don't expect, and it really does mess with you a little bit, and I really appreciated that. What makes this film even more special to me is knowing that what Guy was going through at the time. He went on the Uneasy Terrain Explorers podcast, which is hosted by director Jonathan Doe, who you know before, who directed Barf Bunny, and Guy was basically saying that in the flat he was living in, which he was living in at the time, I think this is the same flat, don't quote me on this, you can go back and watch it yourself, where he was living at the time is called a Jikobuken, I think that's what it's called, I'm not very good with the Japanese language, where it's basically where the previous tenant has died of unnatural causes, i.e. suicides, which is tragic, and basically then the rent is cheaper, right? So he said that he saw spooky things or things brushing past his door, and he heard scratching on the inside of the walls and stuff like this, and like, which would also mess me up big time too. And I think that was the spark, I think, to him, for the uneasy claustrophobic setting, and also a good story base too, being stuck in a place that feels not quite right. And like I said before, I personally love this film for its simplicity and working on what you have to create a really gross, uneasy, and invasive environment that it's going to be a cult classic, I think, definitely in the years to come. Now finally, with his 2 10-minute short films, Jihanko and Uncoffee, these films are really, really strange and silly, and I really love them. They're something that you could really definitely show your friends and have a laugh with it, and, you know, have some beers in and just have a good old hoot, because honestly, they're really creative movies. Uncoffee is a very simple premise where returning actor Han from Difficulty Breathing, who works an office job and has a mundane 9 to 5, and before he starts his day, he goes to grab a can of coffee from a vending machine. There's something not quite right with the can. It's got an illustration of a poop on it, all very strange. He goes to open it, take a sniff of it, and it smells pretty bad, but drinks it anyway. This is where he gradually begins to have an addiction to the stuff, where he gradually turns into a lump of shit. And that's it. That's the story. That's the payoff. And it's fucking hilarious. It's great. Jihanko's kind of similar, but there's no sort of metamorphosis into poo or anything that's going to corrode the body, I guess. It's more of a man who has a sexual fetish for vending machines. Now, in the UK, vending machines are rubbish because people break them, destroy them, pretty piss on them, and they're not really looked after that well. But in Japan, you see vending machines all the time, and it's a kind of an alien thing to me. So it was quite funny to see this man just try to get off with a vending machine. So basically the whole premise is that he's, like I said, sexually attracted to vending machines. And there's nothing really in this story that I could really spoil, if that sounds silly. But to me, the only thing I'd really say for spoilers is that near the end of the movie, there's a dream sequence where he is, I believe he's in his own house or his own flat, and there's a naked woman in front of him, and instead of he treats her like a vending machine, like poking her body like buttons on a vending machine, and he touches her boob, he presses her boob. I can't say. He pushes her boob and a can shoots out of her. You know what? Oh, it was incredible. But you cannot take this seriously. It's so stupid. But to be honest, both of these movies are actually really well made. They were shot, surprisingly, I didn't even realise this, they were shot and edited within 1 day. 1 day. And he produced two short films. That's incredible. I think that is just like a testament here to what he is capable of doing with such small time and budget to make these ridiculously fun stories. And I love it. It's great. And also, they're there to get the job done, which is to make the audience laugh. But in conclusion, guys, I really do believe that Guy is a director that has something special here, and I reckon he'll be able to create something amazing in the future. He definitely has a style that blends so many different things together, like dark comedy, horror, surrealism, and of course, not to forget, trauma. he's able to talk about and show you trauma, which is kind of a rare thing to do right, respectfully, in horror films or any sort of like genre of film to show trauma. And I'm really looking forward to what he does next with Sculpting Fragments, his production company. But yeah, like I do believe that he has something special, and if you want to go and check out his movies or buy them, I'll leave a link to his shop down below and his YouTube channel, where you can show him some love. But as always guys, thank you very, very much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Cheers.